Welcome to the studio, Federal Member for McPherson, Leon Rebello. Good morning.
Good morning, Colin. Always great to be here on a Friday morning.
Well, you've had a busy month since you've been back. We might start with a community update.
Sure. So there's been a lot happening in McPherson. In fact, last week marked 6 months since the federal election. It's
nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's gone very, very quickly. And I haven't wasted a single day. We've done a lot as a team in my office, and we've been able to get some really good results for the Southern Gold Coast. So I do keep a tally of all the community engagements that I've attended, as you know, Colin. And I think when we last spoke about this was at my 2-month mark, where I said we had done 110 community events. We've now done over 400. I've now done over 425. So I'm getting around our Southern Gold Coast community as much as I can. And on the work front, we're also helping constituents who are reaching out about various federal issues. We've had over 600 constituents that we've provided support to, and we've sent over 6,000 pieces of correspondence out of our office. So those are just some, I think, interesting stats.
In that roughly 180 days.
Yes, even less than that. But yeah, no, I think it just shows what you can do if you're motivated and determined.
Nice. Well, it sounds you're connected, you're energised, and you're getting things done.
Exactly. And we recently held the McPherson Honours, so thank you to all your listeners that nominated people. We had over 150 nominations,
nice,
which was fantastic for the first year, and we were joined by over 250 people on the night. It was at the Rebello Auditorium, and we were able to really recognise some very special people who have contributed to our community in different ways.
Well, congratulations to all who were nominated and all who were honoured. It was a fantastic night. Okay, what else have you been up to in the community?
Yeah, so look, yesterday I had the opportunity to go and meet with some of our senior citizens and speak to them about what's happening at a federal level, answer their questions and do all of that. But then we're also at the time of the year where we have a lot of graduation ceremonies. Now, I have over 40 schools in my electorate, and so I've sponsored an award for every Year 12 and every Year 6 cohort. So we have the Spirit and Service Award for the Year 6s, and then we have the Future Leaders Award for the Year 12s. And so I've been doing my best to get to each and every one of those, and where I can't attend, we've been trying to send a representative to present those awards to some of the young people. So earlier this week I went to King's Christian College. We've got a few more that are coming up over the next couple of weeks as well. So congratulations to all the Year 12 students. I think it's an incredible achievement to get through your school education,
yes,
and it's exciting for the future. We look forward to you contributing to our community.
Yes, it's amazing. A nice start to have that sponsorship. All right, this will be a talkback program. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got a question for Leon Rebello, Federal Member for McPherson. It can be something to do with McPherson and the local area, or it can be something to do with federal politics. You can give us a call right now. 0755 208888 is the number. Do not leave it till the end of the program. Ring now. All right, we're going to start with the state of the economy.
So I've had 2 weeks of parliamentary sitting in Canberra recently, so the last 2 weeks. And it was an opportunity to, I guess, reflect on where we're at as a nation from an economic perspective. And there have been some reports that have come out recently which are, quite concerning about what people feel in the lead up to Christmas. Australians will be spending less, or they feel like they'll be spending less than they have in the past, because they are feeling the pressure. And we see that here on the Gold Coast as well. Now, as an economy, just to give you a bit of context for where we're at. So a full-time minimum wage worker is now left with $33 a week after they pay for rent, food and transport.
Wow.
And that's as a result of costs going up, but it's also as a result of no real growth in wages. So our national debt on the other side, so from, we've spoken about from an individual side, but from a country, we are in so much debt. We're hitting $1 trillion, and we've hit $1 trillion, and we're hitting $1.2 trillion by the time we get to the next election. Now, what does that mean? It sounds like all these numbers, but it means that on the interest alone on that debt, we are now paying $50,000 as a country every 60 seconds.
Wow.
So that's the calculation. And then we've got a system where, yes, the government is talking a lot about we're, increasing the amount of jobs that are available. We're creating all these new jobs. And it's great to have new jobs. It boosts our economy. But 1 in 5 of those new jobs are in the private sector,
Yes.
which means 4 out of 5 are in the public sector. So we're growing the size of government at the expense of not being focused on growing the size of the private sector. And we've got this record spending by the federal Labor government, which, if you actually look at the stats, outside a recession is the highest it has ever been since the Second World War. So it's doing nothing to actually meaningfully reduce that debt. And the government spending is growing 4 times than the actual than the actual rate of growth of the Australian economy. So we've just had all these different issues. We're not in a great spot at the moment, and as the opposition, we will hold the government to account because that is our role, and we want to see an Australia that's more prosperous.
So let's put it in basic terms. We're spending more than we actually earn, and at the end of the day, eventually we've got to pay that debt back.
That's right.
And what you're saying is $50,000 every 60 seconds or every minute is just the interest repayment.
Just the interest.
Not even paying down the principal.
And it's very hard, especially for young people. I'm conscious that I'm often viewed as a representative of my generation because I'm now the youngest in the coalition. But it's very hard for young people to think about conceptually how we're going to be able to get out of that debt cycle. So it is going to require some tough decisions. I mean, reduction in government expenditure is not always going to be popular.
No.
But you need governments and politicians and representatives with the conviction to actually make those decisions and say we're actually doing this in our national interest.
Let's go back to the original preface, and I'm a big fan of this. We put the government of the day in the position of managing the affairs of Australia on our behalf. Now, that is making the right decisions for us. And balancing the books or balancing the budget like we do at home every day or every week is part of that, and it's a major part of that.
That's right, exactly. And at a time where cost of living is still the number one concern, and I think there's a lot of other things that are being spoken about, but the feedback that I've received, and I've been at the Burleigh markets recently, I've continued to do my listening posts across the electorate at shopping centres and on beaches, and the feedback that I receive from people and from businesses is that cost of living still remains the number one concern.
Sure.
So within the context of that, government is expecting that people, the people that we govern, live within their means. It's only right that the government does the same.
Absolutely. Otherwise, we're just packing it away and we'll end up having to pay it back down the track. Now, that is higher taxes, job losses, and all of those nasty things that we never like hearing, I suppose, is probably the best way of going about it. All right. Net zero, the topic of the day. Leon, I'm going to leave the microphone to you right now. I'd like to hear from you, your point of view on the entire discussion.
Yeah, so Colin, it's something that has been talked about a lot over the last couple of months, and it's gained a lot of space in political discourse. So I think what I'll do is I'll start by kind of saying how we got here to this point.
Sure.
The Liberal Party's obviously had a big week, and so I'll talk about that. And then what the policies that we are taking to the Australian people ahead of the next election.
And your point of view.
And my point of view. Yeah, exactly. So, and my point of view will be part of how we got here as well. So in terms of how we got here, the Liberal Party has, we're a democratic party where every member of the party has the opportunity to contribute to policy. So I had to go down to Canberra on Wednesday, and we had a special meeting of the Liberal Party room. And in that meeting, it was the Liberal Party at its best, where every single member of Parliament who sits in the Liberal Party room was able to have their say about what their community felt and what they felt energy policy in Australia should be. Now, from my perspective, and this is a topic that I've been very engaged on in speaking to people across my community before and after the election, and I think the starting point of my contribution was that Australians do want to see, generally, we do want to see a reduction in emissions, right? We want to do our fair share for the environment, and I think that's important. But people in my community were telling me that it cannot be at any cost. And this is where we need to have a realistic discussion with the Australian people to say this is where we're at as a country and this is where we want to go. So I stood up in the party room, and I won't speak to what others contributed because, that's a matter for them and party rooms are confidential. But I am very happy to say what my contribution was. I stood up in the party room and I said the starting point is that we need to walk away from Labor's net zero by 2050 full stop, right? And the reason we need to do that is because it is not working. And that gives us the license to then say, well, we're going to put forward our own plan, which is both responsible and a way that's actually going to make a meaningful difference to emissions and to cost prices as well. So why is it that we have the license to do that? Because Labor's plan's not working on two fronts. We're actually not seeing a reduction in prices. In fact, quite the contrary, prices have gone up, energy prices have gone up almost 40% since this government came to office. So it's really, not working on the price front, but it's not even working on the emissions front. So emissions haven't gone down under Labor, despite all this investment, all this money, all this political capital. So we're not actually, emissions are the same now as they were under Scott Morrison. So what we needed to do is say, okay, your plan's not working. Australia cannot it's unrealistic to say that Australia is going to get to net zero by 2050, even despite the incredible push that this government and Chris Bowen is trying to make on the renewables front. So we need to put something different forward. And our responsibility as elected representatives is to make sure that we act on the priorities of our constituents. And I think I would be absolutely lying if I said that the priority was anything other than addressing the number one concern, which is cost of living, and what stems to cost of living, what the source is these increased power prices that small businesses, that families, that individuals are facing, right? And so we need to have a plan that is both affordable energy and sustainable energy.
Absolutely.
And I think the Liberal Party has taken that concept, which the Labor Party has totally neglected, of affordability and put it at the heart of our energy policy. And we can do that while we are reducing emissions, because part of our plan is to be totally committed to the Paris Agreement, right? Now, under the Paris Agreement, it is a number of countries who have come together saying we recognise that we want to see emissions reduced and we want to work towards a situation of carbon neutrality over time. And that is why, we will continue to have policies which support us, going down that path. But those policies are going to put Australians first and put the needs of the Australian community first right now. Because as you know, Colin, this is an international effort. It's not just an Australian effort.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's sort of the background of my contribution, and I said to the party room that I thought we should work towards having, there's nothing wrong with having an aspiration of net zero or having sort of net zero as a welcome outcome, but we're not going to fall for what Labor's done. We're going to be honest and transparent with the Australian people. We're not going to have targets from opposition. We just aren't going to set targets from opposition. And we think that these 2030, 2035, 2050 targets that they're setting are just crippling our economy. So we need to go about it in a way that is the Australian way. And that's exactly what Susan Lee came out and Dan Tehan came out and said yesterday.
Look, I'm a big fan of this statement. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So that just means that we should be re-examining policies and going, are they working? And let's make a change if they're not, because we need a course correction. And it does need to be that. Houses are an issue. Cost of rent is an issue. Cost of living is an issue. Power is an issue. These are the focuses in front of our face. And if we can do it by balancing our emissions, fantastic. Now, we have a caller on the line.
Sure.
Do you want to take a break for a moment and answer a question?
Of course.
It's a very good morning to Glenda. Glenda, and ask your question of Leon.
No, I don't actually have a question. I just want to say well done for you deciding to go against Labor, because they are decimating the countryside. It's not helping one little bit. All these solar panels on land is absolutely disgusting to look at. It's not helping one little bit towards reducing the emissions. They're not doing anything. The cost of electricity has gone up. So thank you for taking the right move and going against it.
Well, thank you very much, Glenda. I really appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. Something that for those of us who live in or near cities, we don't often see is the effect of what these decisions that people like Chris Bowen and Anthony Albanese have made in relation to renewables. And part of my contribution in the party room is I said, yeah, you know what, we're happy to have some renewables subject to there being a social licence. And the communities need to be consulted. And that's a really important part of our plan, right? So the first step is we need to fix Labor's energy mess. So we need to get rid of these targets,
it's a big mess.
Exactly.
They're doing completely the wrong thing, and it's not helping one little bit.
That's right, and we have some incredible strengths as a country. We have, incredible natural gas supplies. We have, clean coal as well. But we also have the ability to have renewables, but to have those renewables where it's appropriate. And I think that is key. We need to listen to the communities and not just shove it down their throats.
Yeah, some of the places they've put them has decimated the countryside, and it's not good at all. Anyway, keep up the good work, and I'm so pleased that you've gone down that channel, because what Bowen's doing is completely wrong, and we need to change.
Thanks, Glenda. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Glenda. Well, if you've got a question for Leon Rebello, or even just a comment, 0755 208888 is the number to call. And do not leave it to the end of the program. We've got about 10 minutes to go. All right, we took a pause there on net zero. Now, you mentioned that everyone gets a say in the party room.
Yeah.
And then the policy is boiled down from all of your opinions. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, so I'll just speak to the process. We have a very transparent process. We don't run a dictatorship in our party. It was so refreshing to have both the relevant shadow minister, so Dan Tehan, and Susan Lee as the leader, sit there and listen to all of the contributions made by different members of the community, members of the party room. And the reason it's important is because we all represent, and this is by virtue of our democracy, we all represent a different corner of Australia with different needs, different aspirations, generally actually quite similar aspirations, but different needs. And we all see this energy transition that the Prime Minister and Chris Bowen are trying to put to us in their way. We all see it from a different light, right? And so we have people in the cities seeing it from a certain way. You've got people from the region seeing it in another way as well. So once we go through that process, which we did, that then provided the rest of the relevant feedback to the Shadow Cabinet, and the Shadow Cabinet met yesterday. And they were able to come to a position which takes into account those views. And I must say that the position we've come to really represents the view that I put to the party room, where we need to make sure we are trying to reduce emissions, but we need to do it in a sustainable way from our economic perspective.
Absolutely.
Right? It is absolutely not about denying science or denying anything like that. This is about making sure we put the economy, the economic considerations front and centre. And this is now fundamentally a debate on economics and who can manage the energy system from an economic perspective better. And so now what's happening is we're moving to a situation, so the Liberal Party room has taken a position. There are members of the Liberal Party, senior members of the Liberal Party, who are now engaging with the National Party. We are, a coalition after all, and we will have a joint party room, which is all of us in a room on Sunday. And that will be in a virtual room on Sunday. So that will be the joint party room of the Liberal Party and the National Party. And we have those negotiations in the meantime as a party. So there will be more to this, but I think we are in a really strong position. I've spoken to a lot of people from both the Nationals and the Liberals, and I think this gives us the clear air to say this is the direction we want to go. We've been bold, and I think sometimes in politics you need to be bold.
Look, I think you do, and being very clear about what you stand for and where you're going and what you're doing. Look, everything's a living document. You do need to course correct. Things happen in the economy, things happen in the world that mean that you have to re-look at things and say, are we going in the right direction? And I think having that shake-up, having that look and making those changes is a positive.
Absolutely.
Energy policy. Now, we talked about off air that as part of this, there is a focus on what your vision of how energy is going to be generated and distributed across the country by you guys.
Yeah, so we're not just saying we don't want net zero by 2050. I mean, we are saying that, but we're actually putting forward an alternative vision for what our future would look like under a coalition or under a Liberal government, right? And the idea that we're putting forward is that when we're talking about emissions reduction, we're talking about a technology-led approach, and that's key. Now, we're being bold and putting nuclear back on the table, and we're putting it on the table for a very good reason, because we believe in it.
Yes.
And we believe in it because we do trust the science. Now, with nuclear, from our perspective, the first critical step is removing the moratorium that Australia currently has. Now, recently I was in Canberra and I had the opportunity to meet with Nuclear for Australia and a young gentleman who has been an incredible advocate for that cause. And to see, such young people who are actually engaged in the detail and talking about, the opportunities that Australia can face. 19 out of the 20 top, I think it's the OECD economies, either have nuclear or they're moving towards it. Australia is quite disadvantaged in this paralysis that we've put on ourselves just to have this, this moratorium on nuclear. So that's the first step. It's making sure that we pursue a removal of that moratorium. The other thing we need to do is look at things such as our capacity investment scheme. Now, this is something that I also spoke to the party room about. It's currently been restricted only to renewable technology. Now, I've got nothing against renewable technology. In fact, the Liberal Party has nothing against renewable technology, but we will be technologically agnostic. We will make sure that we pursue whichever energy can result in energy abundance in Australia.
Yes,
right?
and that's the way it should be looked at.
Yeah, and we can do that while having the environment and emissions reduction at the centre of what we do. And I think it's also important to just make a point that we need to also maintain a social licence. And I think this is something that Chris Bowen and Albanese have fundamentally got wrong. They've thought, okay, we're just going to put all this taxpayer money, because it is taxpayer money, into this transition. And we're not going to, we're just going to be able to get away with it. I think we need to understand that if we want to make sure that we take the community on the journey of wanting to reduce emissions, we're doing it in a way, which again goes back to the point that I made earlier, that they're not bearing the cost entirely, right? It's not affecting their lives in such a damaging way. And so we can do it, we can walk that middle ground and make sure that through the use of technology-led emissions reduction, to the use of, removing the moratorium of nuclear, and in the way that we are technologically agnostic, we can actually take people on that journey and we don't lose ground as a country. So I think it's a combination of all of that. Now, the other part is actually looking at things like gas. I've spoken about the Australian gas sector being an incredible opportunity. We need to unlock new gas supply.
Absolutely.
And part of that is unlocking the gas supply infrastructure as well for investment. We need to show the world that Australia is open to investment. We're open to investment in the energy sector, regardless of technologies. Come to Australia, come invest. And we need to make sure that we also are getting the benefit for Australians from Australian gas. So this is something that's actually quite critical that we also announced yesterday, is that we support an East Coast gas reservation scheme. Now, what does that look like?
Yes.
It means that we're actually going to preserve or quarantine some of the gas that we produce as a country to make sure that it is in effect buffering the supply that we have in Australia. So there's a lot of people who spoke to me, especially young people who spoke to me in the lead up to the election saying, Australia has all these resources and we've got all this gas and we send it overseas and we don't get the benefit. Well,
Yes.
this policy is designed at addressing that, because we are putting Australians and Australian livelihoods and our businesses right at the centre of what we're doing.
Perfect, because power is one of those pillars that we're struggling with. We hits our hip pocket once a quarter. If you're paying quarterly at your power bill, there was some rebates on offer from the state and federal government. They've dried up now, and we can feel it every quarter. It is a horrendous drain on our monthly bills.
That's right.
There you go. All right, we're at the end of the program. Leon, any final words before we round up?
Look, I'll be here before, I think we've got one more program before the end of the year. But again, congratulations to all those students who are finishing up around this time. It's an incredible achievement. My office remains open to everybody, so feel free to reach out if there's anything I can do. And I hope to see you at the many community events as we enter quite an exciting time of year across our fantastic Southern Gold Coast community.
Thank you very much for your time. We look forward to your company in December. You can find that booking or that reservation on our website, 4crb.com.